Hello again and welcome to Ag Life. I'm Gerard. Lampow. On the menu, more from the Powering Your Profits tour. Plus, we find out about a renewable energy workshop. Yep, renewable energy. And then a chat about funding for solar watering systems as part of a bigger conversation about riparian management and stewardship. And we meet some 4-H kids who relish the outdoors. You heard that right, relish the outdoors. First, with rapid change in the tax regulations in the last little while, well, taxpayers need to stay on top of their business. I get some insight from someone who has 3 decades of taxation under his belt.
If you have income from a partnership on your tax return.
Rob Strilchuk says in his 30 years as a tax advisor, and especially with agriculture in mind, he's noticed a trend in the last 5 years.
Farming's gotten to be actually not only profitable, but it's big business. And in the last 2 to 3 years, the tax changes have been dramatic.
Strilchuk outlines the 3 main changes.
Tax on split income. So in other words, Revenue Canada is trying to prevent what they view as unfair splitting of income amongst family members. There is the small business deduction changes, which is saying, hey, in certain circumstances doing business with related companies, you might have to share that small business deduction limit that's the low rate.
He says that rate is 12% this year and then 11% next year. The high rate is 27%. Then there's the passive income rule.
Hey, if you have earned your income in a company, paid that low tax rate, and now you have invested it, something not active business, that investment income, if it's over $50,000 annually, it may have an impact on your small business limit, that low tax rate for the following year.
Strilchuk says that rule comes into play next year based on your 2018 income, so you need to plan now. The room seemed to go silent on possible taxation on dividends, which may be viewed by the CRA as not reasonable or not earned.
It could end up being taxed at the top marginal rate. In Alberta, that could be as high as 42%. In the past, it might have actually been near nothing.
He's urging producers to get the right advice and not proceed to do as they have always done. Time now to roll our events calendar. If you want to get in on this part of the show, it's real easy. Just email me, glampow@newcap.ca, and let's have a look at some upcoming events. And still to come, a conversation about tight canola rotations. Do stay with us. Thanks again for choosing Ag Life. More from the Powering Your Profits tour. And another hot button topic is how often to seed the major cash crop. I find out why the oilseed debate is still ongoing.
We try to get the data from around the world and put it all together.
The shortening or tightening of rotations is just one of the things that Murray Hartman has noticed in his 17 years at the provincial helm with Alberta Agriculture and Forestry.
With canola growing much more frequently, and a 1 and 2 rotation is now very, very popular, versus at the start of my career, most farmers had a 1 and 4 diversified rotation.
Hartman says the profits reign supreme, even though the science says there are problems like disease pressure with short rotations.
Why do we get such a different attitude towards short rotation from growers versus scientists? And And yeah, there's a difference in time horizon. A scientists are looking at 10 or 15 years down the road and the impact on the industry versus a farmer saying, I'm worried about the next 5 years on my, bottom line and profits, profitability.
Hartman turned to confirmation bias, dealing with filtering information.
What you perceive as good information or relevant information for you, it really depends on your already prevailing attitudes, and we are, like I said, we are drawn to information that confirms our existing beliefs.
Going forward, Hartman says we all need to look at being open to information that's different to what we believe.
If you can challenge yourself to realize that, you can all of a sudden say, okay, where are my strong opinions and my vulnerability to confirmation bias, and how can I counteract that to being a little open now to information that's on the other side of the fence and make maybe a better decision.
With the economics as a background, he admits that especially where club route is concerned, there still isn't sufficient data to say what is the best rotation.
1 in 3 versus 1 in 4. I think it's really hasn't been enough information to give us confidence in having a really good recommendation yet.
Well, installed solar capacity in Alberta is up from just 6 megawatts in 2015 to 35 megawatts this year. As renewable energy continues to grow, there's a new course to help you tap into the power surge.
So it's coming up December 5th. This will be the first time the course is being offered.
A new course to respond to a changing landscape as the demand for renewable energy is also relevant in rural areas. Clint Brand says the course runs for 1 day over 6 hours.
In Alberta, we have a lot of sun, we have a lot of wind, and so we have these renewable resources that it could be a fantastic economic opportunity.
Brand, who is the program coordinator at Augustana College in Camrose, sees renewable energy as a way to reduce environmental impact. Augustana College is also home to the Jean and Peter Lougheed Performing Arts Centre.
The entire fly tower on the outside of the building, the entire skin of the building is actually solar panels. All year round, rather. We get more sun, obviously, in the summer, but even in the winter right now, so those solar panels, are used to cover the majority of the electricity and energy use within the building.
Any excess power, especially during the summer months, is fed back into the grid. That feature is another way that rural communities can benefit from renewable energy.
It will cover topics like reviewing current trends, looking at existing regulations, and then looking at what kind of opportunities and what kind of challenges would be faced by our local communities, our rural communities, in trying to break into the green energy and renewable energy sector.
So everything from refitting a barn or workshop with solar panels on the roof and of course solar-powered watering systems. Several funding programs have come on stream as Alberta's solar sector is up 5 times that of 2015.
There are more granting opportunities and funding opportunities coming up for projects that would be looking at installing solar power, wind power, geothermal.
So lots happening there. Still to come on our show, well, we have a chat about funding that is available for solar watering systems from someone who has been in the business and helping with producers for some 10 years. Ag Life is on location once again. We're somewhere in the Turtlefoot River area. In fact, we're on the river bank here and we're visiting with Mark Belanger, and also joining me, she is an agro-environmental technician with the North Saskatchewan River Basin Council, Annette Smith. So, Annette, we're talking about this solar watering system that Mark has put down here on his property. And for folks who don't know, there's funding available for that, would you believe?
Correct. Any agriculture producer who has $50,000 in gross farm income, and anybody that owns livestock will need to have a premise identification number. So you'll need to get those 2 things. If you qualify for that, you can be eligible for 50% of the eligible costs. And so solar systems are one of the projects that you can apply for. Drilling a new well, digging dugouts, and also dugout expansions. And also pipelines, which we will see one later, shallow or deep buried pipelines. And so there's individual caps on each of the projects, so you want to make sure you contact one of us and we can help you with that. and also to be sure that you have your permits in place if you need any permits with your dugouts or wells or solar systems.
Awesome there. Now, Mark, tell me how you heard about this. And of course, you heard about it after the fact that you could get funding.
Yeah, actually, I heard about the funding through the business where I purchased my solar pump.
That was
And
in Paradise Hill, was
that
it?
was the Paradise Hill Farm Supply, and they pointed me in the right direction, gave me the phone numbers I needed, and here I am.
Here we are today. Now, this has just gone in the summer there. How's it working out for you?
It has been flawless so far. We haven't had any trouble with it whatsoever, and it seems like a good, clean, consistent supply of water. Everything I wanted.
Right. Tell me about your cows and such. How many cows are able to get water from this watering trough here?
This particular trough, we're running 55 heifers, half a dozen cows and calves, a couple bulls. The batteries haven't had any trouble keeping up with the load it had to carry, so I'm rather happy with it.
Awesome there. And then we just got to see what happens in the winter. We've had a few cold snaps, so we've had some snow already, actually.
Actually, the only trouble I have had on two different occasions, the float that activates the pump has frozen, or at least had built up enough ice that it wouldn't activate. But besides that, it hasn't given me any trouble.
This is just one of the ways that producers just act as good stewards of their land. Tell me something about that here.
Well, keeping the cattle out of the river was a consideration. As much as anything, it was to provide a barrier. We normally would use the river as a barrier to keep the cattle from moving on to the next pasture. But of course, cattle swim, so that doesn't always stop them, so we built a fence. But I never saw a lot of environmental damage from the cattle drinking out of this river. I have 1.5 miles of river frontage, and the cattle drank in two places. And I could watch my cattle walk 1/4 mile with the river directly at their side, and they would never stop to drink until they got to the 2 holes that they were familiar with, and that's the only places they would drink.
Super. Now, of course, you've benefited from the funding. You've put in the application. Annette, tell us about just how folks, okay, because in Mark's case, you heard about it after the fact and then put in his paperwork.
Yes. In fact, in Mark's case, we had to apply through the farm stewardship program. So the riparian grazing management, beneficial management practice. And so I came out and we had a look at the spot where Mark wanted to put his solar system and fence. And we had to do a riparian assessment and then a tame assessment of the grass that's here, and then do a grazing plan up, and then with the farm stewardship program, that's a pre-approval application. So we had to pre-apply and get the funding, and so he's just waiting for his check to get back in the mail.
Wow, look at this here. So now that you're super stoked, I'm pretty stoked for you too. You're going to be doing some more projects with the government next year, maybe?
Very possibly. We're always breaking up land, reseeding it into alfalfa, taking cropland out of production, expanding watering or dugouts, new wells. So it's definitely something we'll be looking into the future.
Yeah, and even the drive out here, I noticed some areas where there's a lot of salinity. You can see the salt on the surface. That wasn't snow there. Annette, you were saying something earlier to me about there's benefit for that too, in terms of taking care of those saline areas.
Yes, for sure. Through the farm stewardship program, there is the permanent tame forage BMP. So if it's annual cropland and it's marginal or saline, you can apply to seed it back to forages. So you would get 50% up to a maximum of $70 per acre. So 50% would be $35 an acre back, roughly. So.
Yeah, and that's always great for producers and all part of taking care of the land. You folks, this ranch actually has got some history to it there as we begin to wrap this up here, Mark.
Well, the ranch has been here since either 1890 or 1891. Originally homesteaded by a gentleman by the name of Alphonse Béliveau. In about 95, my great aunt and uncle came out to work as a housekeeper and a hired hand, and then in 98, Alphonse Béliveau and his brother decided they would head north to the Klondike and pan some gold. and hopefully become rich. And they sold the building and leased the cattle to my family, and the family's been here ever since, right along the Turtle River and along the Fort Pitt Trail. We used to keep horses for the Mounties back in the days, and they would come out on patrol. They would leave Fort Battleford and reach our ranch right around supper time and spend the night, take a fresh set of horses on and press on to Fort Pitt. So yeah, there's been lots of history here.
Awesome indeed. But one thing I'm pretty confident about is the benefits. It's a tough life. Your family has soldiered it, over 100 years, it sounds like there, but a rewarding life too. I'll let Annette have the last word on this one, because folks here listening into it, and Marc Belanger here has benefited from being able to get some funding pretty soon coming out to take care of this solar watering system that he's got here. Annette, give us the contacts. How can folks caring about this get in touch with you guys?
You can check the website, North Saskatchewan River Basin Council. Our contact information is on there. My contact is 306-441-4066. I don't mind giving that out. I've been an agro-environmental technician. Most of the people in the area, I've been, doing this for, I think, just about 10 years. So I've been around this area for a while, and I appreciate you taking your time to do this for us and help get the word out.
Yes, we're very happy to get that word out indeed. Of course, we shot that before the snow. Annette Smith with the not-for-profit, the North Saskatchewan River Basin Council, and Marc Belanger, who has benefited from CAP funding in his solar-powered watering trough and fencing as part of riparian area management. Well, when we come back, we meet some 4-Hers who are living the life in the outdoors. Ag Life continues after this break. As temperatures get colder, it's tough to say, let's get outdoors and have some winter fun. Well, I meet some kids who are not only doing that, but learning some important life skills too.
4-H is awesome!
For many rural communities, a good way to keep kids engaged is through the 4-H program. 12-year-old Maya Weber has been in 4-H for 5 years.
I'll get some more grass here.
As simple as this project looks, they are removing dead, dry, and possible combustible material from their area.
We are building sculptures out of snow and twigs and other stuff like that.
What are you building over here?
We built like a barn with a house and a fence here and a feeder with a cow in it.
This is only our second project that we've done. We've had a couple of book meetings, but the first one that we did, we went fishing. My husband actually has a boat, and so we took all the kids on the boat, went fishing.
The Hunt family are invested in the 4-H club, and it makes a big difference in the lives of these kids. Spencer Lang is now in his 2nd year.
It teaches us things about don't break down the new trees and trees that are still alive. And also about things we went fishing earlier in the year, and then we learned about some fishing safety.
Even that simple fishing trip has important lessons to learn. The 4-H programs run from September to May and wrap up with public speaking and an achievement day. It's hard not to get involved in these activities. Well, it's got a scary name, and with good reason. This disease can reduce yield in a canola crop. I find out about Blackleg.
These identify what resistance genes are in the canola variety.
It's a fungus that lives on old canola residue and just blows around in the wind and infects crops. So it's not a good thing.
Clint Jurke with the Canola Council of Canada says blackleg is a disease that affects canola at the early stages and takes away the yield at the end.
Blackleg, it lives on old canola residue, so the old crop, like a previous canola crop that's still in the field, usually like bits of root and bits of the lower parts of the stem. And once the weather warms up and we get some rain on those old canola bits, then they shoot out spores that infect the next canola crop.
Blackleg likes the wet conditions and then dry at the end of its cycle to kill the canola plant. Its main features is a black coloration on the stem of the plant.
We encourage producers to have some clippers, like scissors on hand when they're scouting their crops at swathing time and cutting stems open and looking for this black color. If there's black in interior stem, then that means the fungus is there, taking away their yield.
Producers need to be vigilant in order to protect their yield. Unfortunately, if you find blackleg in your crop, then Jurke says you have to ride it out.
Knowing that you've got it, then it gives you better opportunities to prevent it the next time you grow canola in that field or the fields that are around it. Choosing a better variety that is suited for that particular race of the blackleg fungus. You can pick out the right resistance genes that you need to have in your canola varieties that will fight off the disease and keep the yield there.
Also, a fungicide can be used, but that needs to be done early in the season and not at the end. Scouting also needs to be done in the fall after harvest. There are 3 labs on the prairies to send plants to be tested.
2020 Seed Labs in Alberta, Discovery Seed Labs in Saskatoon, and the PSI Lab in Winnipeg.
Jurke says the seed companies are doing a really good job at building in better levels of resistance in their seed varieties.
Clubroot and Blackleg, and there's even some Sclerotinia tolerant varieties that are out there as well.
Gerard, Lampow, Primetime Local News. Well, that's a wrap on Ag Life. Of course, if you've got a comment or story idea, we'd certainly love to hear from you. You can email us at tvnews@newcap.ca. Follow us on Facebook and also on Twitter, and as well we're on Instagram. And certainly you can send us mail 5026 50th Street, Lloydminster, Alberta, T9V 1P3. I'm Gerard Lampow, and we'll see you next time for all things ag. Take care.